class.
Okay.
And you'll probably have noticed that when my class are reading, they sit with different partners.
Yeah.
So I mix them up in terms
Okay.
of ability,
Okay.
because then they're supporting one another when
Each
we're
other.
doing shared
Yeah.
reading.
And how do you think, since you guys started doing this reading for pleasure, I know that individual teachers would be doing things in their classrooms anyway. If you were sharing your habits with the students, and if you wanted to instill a love for reading, you probably doing that anyway.
Yeah.
But do you think that consciously the school kind of saying that we want to foster this in the children has made a difference for you in your...
I think so. I think, there's a real there's a buzz around the school for reading. So now, whereas you never used to see children in the playground at lunch with books.
Okay.
Even further up the school, because I do a duty outside as well at lunchtime, you see them, they walk around reading, sitting with their friends in the gazebo outside.
Okay.
Yeah, wow. So they're actually, you can see it. You can see it, because I think where we've pushed and every single year group, no matter how they've tailored it to suit their children, I've seen a big increase in the children's motivation to read for pleasure rather than just academic reading on top of.
Because I used to know, I've observed different teachers, and there would be certain teachers who somehow managed to, during that independent reading time, the kids would actually be reading. They'd take a book and they'd read, and you could tell that they were engaged. Whereas with other classrooms, I'd walk in and the children would just be flipping through the pages, not really reading. They're just because they're expected to. So you can kind of, and you've noticed that with your class as well. Okay.
Yeah, and in year one, because I am also the head of year one, so then I also oversee what happens, so that we're making sure everything's consistent. Yeah. So therefore, if something worked really well with the children when we were reading, then we would share. We meet up after and we discuss it as a team. So therefore, we're taking snippets of good practice from each other.
Yeah, that's really
as well,
that's
and
so important. Yeah. Okay.
And then vice versa. If something didn't work so well, then we put our heads together and we think, well, how can we overcome this so that the children are getting the most that they can out of that experience?
Okay, so that kind of develops your pedagogy for this as you keep going on. And you talked about involving parents, kind of keeping that in mind. Have you changed the way you involve parents since the Reading for Pleasure initiative?
Yes, so we encourage everybody every night is the main scheme for reading at home. We want children to be reading every night with their parents, even if it's only 10-15 minutes before bed. Sharing of stories is so important. I remember growing up and I used to love bedtime because it was story time. But we also, what we do every half term, we have an awards assembly. And one of the awards that we actually give is for reading everybody every night and having the encouragement from the parents as well. So the children receive a gift and a certificate in front of everybody, and Mrs. Siddiqui hands that out. But then we also choose one parent every year, every half term, or two parents every half term, to receive an award for their support. So it could be for different reasons, but I tailor the awards to suit how they've supported their children with reading and their development. So it might be that, for example, one of the children found it very hard to add expression, so she's a very fluent reader, but when she was being able to change her voice and everything, I speak to the parents at the end of the day, and I just say, right, this is how we're moving on with our reading as well, just to make it even more exciting. And they work so hard with them. So it's having that relationship with them, I think, and I think everyone is fostering that that strong relationship where we can say to them, oh yeah, we love doing this. And children's voice, pupil voice is very strong anyway. So you can say to the children and then they'll go and feed back as well.
And what kind of, when you talk about awards, what kind of awards?
So they're very much, so the awards for reading everybody every night, they change every half term.
Okay.
And they're very much tailored to our school.
Okay.
So the first set was a leather bookmark, which had Stanhope Primary School on it in gold.
Okay.
But for children, they were mesmerised by it because it's gold writing and a bookmark links to their reading and it's purposeful. Whereas the last lot of awards were, so obviously they get their certificate, but on top of that they had a bag.
Okay.
You know, like a shopping bag as well,
Yeah.
with Stanhope on it.
Nice.
So it just personalised.
Okay.
It's a little bit more personalised.
Nice.
So, and then the children who are really demonstrating that they are reading everybody every night and reading a wide range of books on top of their normal reading books.
Okay.
They also receive their own a special extra prize of a specific book suitable for their age. Like one of them was like a magic book. So it had all different things about magic and it had tricks in there.
Nice.
So it was just fun.
Okay.
So encouraging different text types as well through awards.
Okay. So you have, and with these, with the, that you said happens every half term.
Every half term, the awards assembly, yes.
Okay. And so we've talked about, you need to go.
No,
Is it okay?
it's fine. It's fine. I've just got an achy finger.
And do you document in any way the impact that your efforts at fostering reading for pleasure have had on your children? Do you?
What, as in record it?
Yeah. Is there any way that you?
Well, we have we have focused children. In terms of, we have focused children, and there's an assistant head teacher assigned to each phase. So for year 1 and 2, Miss Petrushko, who came in, is our assistant head, and she takes focus groups out.
Okay.
So she documents the progress on those children. So she'll ask them, what do they like about reading, and she'll track that.
Okay.
And then she also does one-to-one reading that she tracks with them as well on top, just to watch their progress in reading on top of their attitude to reading.
Okay. And has that documentation in any way, do you think that's shown?
Yeah, I think as a teacher you get to know your children.
Yeah, you know.
You know, and for example, there's a young man in the class, he was so quiet when it came to reading, and he did find it a little bit challenging at the beginning. He did find it challenging, but the reading for pleasure, you can see it actually, his confidence, and even some of there's so many of them that were really timid and they didn't want to share their thoughts. They didn't want to respond to questions, but they'll put their hand up and they'll be eager to share, and they'll have so much to say. And at the beginning, you'd notice that they weren't really interested in reading. However, now they'll say, I love reading because... And I do, I don't know if you noticed, at the back of the class where the Aliens Love underpants are, there's lots of post-its on the bottom. And I do a review every few weeks to think about different things linked to reading. So on the post-it, I will ask them why they like reading sometimes, what their favourite book that they've recently read is, and why. So I recently, because of the holidays, I wanted to revisit why we like reading, what it is we like reading. Maybe if you want to pop in after when they go, maybe you can take photos, because their responses are amazing. Some of them are talking about how it links to their imagination. Some of them like acting out the stories. Some of them love specific books. Some of the responses are that I learn new words that I can use. So there's a wide range, but it's nice to just revisit and see what they get out of reading as well, personally, on a personal basis.
No, that's really okay. So what I'm trying to just make sure that I don't skip anything, because
That's okay, don't worry.
because you're
I'm talking a lot.
no, that's good, because I'm getting things that I want without asking some of the questions so it's good. I'm also kind of in balancing, because I can see when you talk that you're consciously thinking about teaching. Of course, you have the skill curriculum.
Yes.
Then you also, because of you consciously think about teaching a love for reading, and you're integrating that. But do you think that the curriculum requirements kind of are at odds with, or somehow there's a tension between the two?
I think
in any way?
I think the approach that we've adapted and we've changed to
Okay.
is meeting both needs. So obviously
Okay.
we do have our curriculum requirements where we need children to be, etc., etc. And obviously in year 1 you have your phonics screening check, which takes precedence.
Yeah.
But it's also important. So they have their separate phonics lesson,
Yeah.
but then on top of that they read as a reading lesson, which fosters that love of reading.
Yeah.
And even within literacy, we use core text.
Okay.
So we plan all of our lessons around a specific story, which the children get to know, act out before they write about it or do writing linked to it.
Okay.
So we're trying to merge. What I'm trying to say is we're trying to merge the two together, just so that it doesn't feel like you can't do both.
Yeah. No, I think that, and I think that's what I've also observed with, like, even in phonics lessons, teachers who somehow just instinctively know, even if they haven't received proper training for this specifically, but they kind of know how to link, how to merge even that with like you said about I link it to my teaching practices and talk about these are tricky words, and so there's ways of, I suppose,
it's just little tweaks that you can make, and they're just small changes. But then again, like we said before, it's role modeling that behavior that you want them to take away.
No, that's really, and I like that you say little tweaks, because that's what I've always noticed. It's very tiny things, but somehow it's difficult to explain to the teacher who isn't doing that what it is that she needs to. And do you think, I mean, if there was someone who wanted to, like a year 1 teacher who wanted to foster a love of reading, what kind of advice would you give them? Like if someone was struggling with this, I mean, you've said quite a bit about that already, I think. But
if I had to actually give them specific advice,
they were struggling with,
it would be, a lot of it would be to role model that behavior you expect from them. Because if you demonstrate that you love reading, you're halfway there, because children look up to you. They look up to you, and if you enjoy, because reading and understanding the story and enjoying the story can be done in many different ways, like through role play and acting and different strategies. Like in the class, obviously the boys and the girls loved the competitive element, which was another thing that was cascaded down to us from the training that Miss Hyatt attended. And that competitive element, really, if you feel that the energy levels are dropping a little bit, it just brings them straight back up. Because children love that element of it. So there's so many different strategies that I feel that you can employ
to make that happen. Okay. And is there anything that you think, as a year 1 teacher, is there anything about how the expectations from year 1 children that you might think, these frustrate me, and if I didn't have to worry about this, then I'd be able to do this better, do the rest of it?
Maybe I think, in terms of the phonics screening check, because that literally just checks whether they can decode. And reading isn't just about decoding.
It's beyond.
It's way beyond there. And because we have to focus so heavily on the decoding, which we have a nice balance with the model that we use. However, However, I have heard from others, and I see on forums when I'm looking, that other year one teachers really, really worry, because this is just about decoding. So actually their comprehension skills end up getting left behind.
Yeah. And
If
then
you
what
don't
are you telling
foster-
them about? What are you telling them about reading if you keep focusing on decoding? And what messages are you giving out about what reading?
Yeah, because reading is multifaceted. You know, we read for many different purposes.
Yeah.
And actually, if you can read, then you can access so many different things, and it helps. Reading does help in every area of the curriculum.
Yeah.
But in the sense of year one, the constraints are making sure that they can decode.
Yeah.
And then you also need that balance for the comprehension side.
Okay. But because I was, we use Floppy's Phonics, which is like in the school that I was teaching in before I came here, and we had one year one class that somehow we just had a lot of children who had special needs in that class, and it was like 50% of their class is some attention deficit issues, or they had a couple of children had speech issues. It was just somehow we didn't even realize, because the school was just starting. And so their pace for phonics was affected by that. But because we didn't have a phonics check or anything, we just took decoding, we spread it out, and we took it to year 2 as well. And we said, okay, so these kids don't have to cover everything before. Yeah. And I sometimes wonder that with the check, it kind of puts like this pressure to get it done, or the children can't even. We
do the same sort of thing, because obviously if children don't pass or they're not ready for it in year 1, they retake in year 2.
Okay.
So what we have in year 1, we stream for our phonics teaching, so that the children are getting really targeted support to be able to move on. But we also have some of the year 2 children who did not pass. They come back and join us. So where they have the gaps in their ability, their knowledge and understanding and their ability to decode, they will go back into the streamed group, which is where they need to be in order to fill those gaps.
So it's more like, I'm seeing, because a lot of schools will sometimes phonics will be the main focus, and then, but I think it's like phonics is one thing they do.
One aspect.
And then everything else around it. And with the lesson that I observed right now, which parts of the lesson do you think, because I could see that there were skills that you were teaching, and then there were other aspects of it that probably catered to just developing that engagement.
And I think other aspects of it as well, I let the children led, and I think it went off on a tangent a few times, but that's their own personal views on things. So I do let them go with it, because actually they're able to justify why they thought certain feelings would be where they are. So we try to employ some of the whole school strategies. For example, like the fastest finger, being able to, obviously you're teaching how to scan a text. And I feel that if they're able to do it and it starts lower down in the school, then further up, they won't have that barrier. And it would not have to be retaught when they're further up, when they're having to do SATs or anything like that, where they're having to scan text to retrieve information. But there were certain skills strategies that we are employing within the lessons to embed the skills, but then the children do go off on a little bit of a...
And is there times of the day when you just read with the intention of just sharing a book with the children, and it's got nothing to do with...
end of the day. We have our story time for the last 15 minutes when we don't have an assembly. Because our assemblies happen between 3 and 3:15 before they go home. And that is a couple of times a week. So therefore, on that day, on the other days we have where I just sit at the front and we do a story time, and then I'm modeling how like that love of reading and changing your voice and actions, and where they're just sitting and they're listening. Sometimes what I also use is there's some really good read along stories, popular children's stories on YouTube, but the words are there. So I have that on the board as well, and then we're all following at the same time as someone else retelling stories. And then I also have the children love Michael Rosen. So he's so animated. So when he retells, one of our focus texts was we're going on a bear hunt. When we did Explorer's topic, and he does an amazing retelling where he uses his whole body and he uses his face and his eyes and changes his voice. They were in awe. They kept asking, can we watch him? Can we see him? So then we linked it. We then went, so I let them choose. So then we linked, and he recites his poem Chocolate Cake. He's amazing. He is amazing. So they go through phases where they would want specific stories, poems. So we don't just read stories. It's also reading poetry. Stanhope also takes part in Lambda examinations where children recite chosen or set poems. And we also have speech and drama festivals for the children, where you saw one of the a couple of the young ladies. They memorize a poem and then they use their body, their facial expressions to retell it. And the children enjoy that, and you see them, they go so quiet because they're engaged with watching the children. So we do a lot of different.
Is there anything that I haven't observed or we haven't talked about that you think these are also good examples of how we foster reading for pleasure at Year 1 level here?
Let me think. We do a lot of... So even in the story times, what I do is I get the children to take turns reading. So yesterday I chose one of the other children. Instead of me reading, I asked them to read the end of the day story. So I try to, and it also builds their confidence. You know, and then listening to different children, not just adults storytelling, but children as well telling. We also have sometimes some of the assemblies that they have are focused on reading and having an adult who's really animated come in and read with like the whole of the assembly and get them involved as well in the story. I'm trying to think. We do so much.
I'm just greedy. I want all
we do so much, but the children really enjoy. So everything we do is around books. So as I said, even the literacy lessons are based on a core text. So we have copies of them. We have them out. We explore it in role play and drama. So acting out a story so they know the sequence of key events, and it puts them in the position of the characters. And do a lot of hot seating on times as well. And with masks, so they get to put the masks on or put the hats on and pretend. For the children that aren't able to read a core text independently, but can follow the story, what we use is puppets. So we use lots of different puppets and lots of visual cues. So we might sequence a story using separate visuals after reading, but they get to act out the story using puppets. So that's what my student was doing with a group of children. She takes them, acts out the story using puppets and things. So we've got a whole, I'll show you in the classroom because they've gone to lunch, a whole box which every year group has, where there's puppets, finger puppets, wooden models, and then some of our, so you might have seen some of the projects that they've done. In literacy, we're going to be focusing this half term on traditional tales. So looking at the structure of them and then writing our own and exploring the characters and one of their homework projects was to create a story box, and they're all in. You can take photos of them as well. They're all in, and it's of their favourite traditional tale.
Okay. Yeah.
So they've depicted, I've got the gingerbread man, I've got the three little pigs.
Okay. And these are the ORT traditional tales?
No, these are just in general. So like Three Little Pigs, Little Red Riding Hood. So let them choose.
The ORT also has like a proper traditional tale thing. I work for the OUP, so I know their entire...
there we go. But yes, so they and that's sharing, because their parents support them when they're making those projects, because they go above and beyond, which again links to the awards ceremony, because there's an award for the best holiday projects as well. So we try to interlink everything.
So your parents seem really involved.
Yes.
Generally.
Yeah.
And that that's really interesting, because you said that you have a very diverse group of children. So that sometimes schools will have problems engaging the parents or reaching out to the parents.
Because I know our reading leader, Mr. Feldman, he's a year 3 teacher. He's also run workshops based on reading for parents as well.
Okay.
So just to encourage and show how we teach reading, so that the parents have a greater understanding of.
And for year 3 parents, or was it
for whole
general
school?
Parents? Okay.
Yeah, in general. And then in every head of year, for each year group, also run workshops. So a numerous amount of workshops. So obviously one of the ones that is most recent that I have run with my team is a phonics screening.
Okay.
Because of the importance of it. But then we also do a workshop on reading, and then on maths.
Yeah.
So it's focused on how best to support your child at home.
Yeah. Okay, so those are kind of the things. And you had the 2 you mentioned that you do. How often do the reading for pleasure, where you do the whole day, is about reading? Is that something that's a recurring thing, or just...
I can't remember how many times we've done, because we have World Book Day as well, which we do a whole afternoon where we're reading for pleasure on top of. But when did we have the reading? At the beginning of the year? So we try to make sure that it's a consecutive, we continue to do that on top of World Book Day, because parents understand World Book Day, dress up your favourite character, etc. But the actual reading side, that I actually loved coming in my pyjamas. It was so relaxed and so comfortable. Yeah. And the children just, as I said, the buzz of it was incredible.
Okay. And is there anything like there... you had reading monitors in your class.
Yes.
Is there anything school-wide or where you have reading in charges, or?
I think each class have their own monitors to help manage their corners and their libraries. So I know, because we work very closely with year 2, they assign children to sign books in and out, and like a librarian.
Okay. Great. Is there anything else that you think would be relevant or is that?
You're putting me on the spot. No. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I've missed, because we do so much. Yeah. Because we do so much, it's really, when you think about it, because it's embedded within our usual practice now, that actually when I sit there and think about it.
But that's interesting too. That it's embedded in the practice, and it's so embedded that you don't really think of it as something.
It's just like second nature now, that it's just part of our general day to day. It's our running, and that's our ethos. Yeah. So we're enjoying reading. I know that a lot of the senior leadership teams also run reading clubs. Okay. Reading clubs where they invite children in. So I know Mrs. Siddiqui has a lot of children that love to go to her office and borrow books from her too. Okay. And I know Miss Hyatt also does the same thing.
Reading clubs for kids, or is it for just...
For children. For the children in the school, and they can go and borrow books from... And it makes it that little bit more special. If the head teacher and the deputy head are allowing you to go to their office and sit there reading with them. Yeah. And, so everyone, even every single person is on board with the reading.
Yeah.
We also get a lot of parent volunteers
Okay.
who come in specifically to sit and read with the children too.
Okay.
So every week we have, in year 1 we have 2 volunteers,
Okay.
and they sit somewhere nice and quiet and calm, and they sit and they read with the children.
Okay.
So, and also model reading behaviour from different adults. So it's not just
Yeah.
coming from a teacher.
Coming from the teacher. I had like this, I read about some schools that did like a guess who's reading what, and they had pictures of their teachers.
We do have that.
Okay.
We have that. I'll show you. I'll take you over. So in the outside the staff room,
Yeah.
we did that. When did we do that? It was a while ago. Quite a while ago. We did it, and there's the books, there's the photos in the corridor of all teachers, and not just teachers, TAs, office
Okay.
staff, everyone
Okay.
with a book hiding their face. And then, but it makes it fun for the children.
I think it's kind of mostly about, because when I would think about it before I got into the academic side of things, I just used to think about, I loved reading, and how did I love, because it was in the house, it was a part of the culture.
Yes.
And that's basically when you see all the adults modeling that behavior, you will eventually learn to value it yourself.
Yeah, of course.
But if no one reads and everyone's just looking at their phones, I mean...
Unfortunately, we do live in a society where
Yeah.
children are
Yeah.
literally on tablets, on
Yeah.
their parents' phones.
Yeah.
Some of the children, even when I've seen them leave the classroom, they say, "Oh, can I have the game?" Like past pupils that I've taught. And it is sad. But I explain to my children that actually sometimes you can read on your phone.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
you can get a Kindle, and some of them know what that is. It's like a
Yeah.
book, but it's electronic instead. And we spoke about what we do on there. It's the same concept of turning the pages,
Yeah.
so you can use it to try and detract from playing games on
just
them.
games. Because that also it's interesting that sometimes when people read on these, they don't quite think it's the same thing as reading a
Reading
book.
a book.
And that's also really interesting, because the nature of print and how it's
Yes.
accessed is changing.
See, I'm quite funny. Although I have a Kindle,
yeah.
because I've grown up with books
Yeah.
always. I've always had a wealth of different
Yeah.
books. I like holding a book.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I think it's kind of very comforting. And
Yes.
This is not as much fun when you read it on, but yeah, and we're also kind of, probably our kids are digital natives, whereas we're digital immigrants.
Exactly.
So there's that. And just a little bit about just how long have you been teaching?
I'm trying to think of how long I've been, because I started here as a supply teacher,
Okay.
and then I stayed here.
Okay.
This is my 3rd year, year 1, 2, so about 5 years.
Okay.
5 years, and then I did a year's supply, so
Okay.
6 years teaching.
Okay. And so you you started at this school and you're still here.
I started as a supply teacher, so I did when I came out of university, because I'm a type 1 diabetic, so I wanted my sugar levels to be perfect, and they weren't.
Okay.
So that's why I went into supply for a year,
Okay.
and I taught in many different schools in different areas until I came here, and then I got more callbacks.
Okay.
And then I ended up as a long-term supply, and then because the school at the time was in special measures,
Okay.
so they couldn't employ NQTs.
Okay.
And then once they could, then I applied for the role as an NQT, and I've stayed here.
Nice. Okay, so you've been teaching for about
6 years, yeah.
years. Okay, great. I think that should do. Unless there's more that you want to tell me. No, and I think it's also been an hour. It would be unfair to you.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay.